Hello and welcome to another episode of Inspiring Teachers. I'm Tavis Beam.
And I'm Danny Hogger.
And on this episode, it's coming to you from the CTA New Teachers Conference. And we had a great time there, didn't we, Danny?
Oh man, anytime we get to run around a hotel, we just have a fun time. It's like our minds go to a different place and we become more mindful and more present in the moment.
And in this episode, we talked to Scottie and Jason from Virginia and San Diego. And we talk about mindfulness in the classroom, not just for the students, but also for the teachers, administrators, everybody in a classroom environment.
Yeah, the California Teacher Association invited us to be there and go to ctago.org and see where the upcoming conferences are. And we got set up more than half an hour early, and these two guys just walked by, and we were like, we should grab them.
Yeah, it was a fantastic conversation. It really spoke to me and a lot of the things that I've tried to do in my classroom, bringing mindfulness into the students' lives.
It's pretty special because in like a series of 7 or 8 weeks that you're right in the middle of here, so go back and watch the others, we're giving you most of the presenters that were at the conference. So wherever you are, you get to hear this for free and enhance your teacher toolkit.
Yeah, and you can go to ctago.org to see some of these videos of their actual presentations as well.
Yeah, and there's tips to help you, even if you're not a teacher, to be more mindful about the way you live. So with that, let's go ahead and hear from Scottie and Jason. The first interview we did, very fresh in the morning. Go watch your boys, Tavis and Danny. And we're wearing very similar clothes. Enjoy, and we'll see you next week. Make sure you subscribe. Here is Scottie and Jason.
Hey, before we start today's live episode of Inspiring Teachers, here's a quick announcement from supporters of this show at GoVenture. Did you know that personal financial literacy is increasingly being taught in schools and universities? Well, today they have a very special offer just for teachers like the ones attending this conference. It's a free online course that will help you gain the wisdom to make better money decisions in your own life. And the course will prepare you to teach personal financial literacy to students. The course allows you to learn at your own pace, it has experiential learning exercises to keep you engaged from start to finish, and it can expand your career opportunity. Plus, it gives you the confidence to be a teaching superhero. Enroll in this course today. It's only free to teachers for a limited time. Go to teachingsuperhero.com. That's teachingsuperhero.com. Brought to you by MediaSpark, the makers of GoVenture. And today's live edition of Inspiring Teachers is also brought to you by AmpedUpLearning.com. Are you looking for new and engaging ways to get your students out of the sit and get rut that we get into so often as teachers? Well, get out of that. Go to AmpedUpLearning.com, a 2-teacher-owned and operated company in Texas that's looking to gamify teaching with its FREC resources and escape rooms for social studies and science, and speed squares and task cards for math and English as well. They have tons of teacher-created resources. In fact, I have more than 24 resources on the Hogger History store at ampeduplearning.com. Use promo code HoggerHistory10 to save 10% on all items, and follow them on social media at Amped Up Learning for giveaways, promotions, and more. They give you a greater percentage than other teacher websites, and you can find a ton of great materials for your classroom. Visit ampeduplearning.com for more information. And now, the live edition of Inspiring Teachers from the new Educator Weekend 2020 in Santa Clara, California. Here we go. Oh, and we get started off early, even before the start time, because we're too fired up. I'm Danny Hogger.
Many teachers. Tavis Beam.
See, you didn't know I was going to cue the names there, and you
Right.
started to co-comment with me, and that's not what I was ready for. I was just doing name checks. This is Inspiring Teachers, and we're live at the new Educator Weekend 2020 North here in Santa Clara, California. We got guests jumping on board before our start time. What do you think about that?
I think that really speaks to the high energy here and how excited everybody is to be a part of this.
And how many people have already come up to us before we started and said they're fans of the show.
Right.
That is so neat.
Fun, yeah.
Yeah, this is a great place to be. And we're going to be talking to some amazing people today. CTA President Toby Boyd, keynote speaker Nicholas Ferroni, Rosie Reed, and more. And we've already got some interstate. See, I want to say international. There's no interstate is the word.
Interstate.
It is the word.
And I'll introduce you in a moment. There's no need to jump to conclusions here. I'm just kidding. We've got Jason and Scottie here, and they're presenting on mindfulness. And we're speaking to Jason from Virginia. Jason, introduce yourself. Tell the people who you are and what you do and why you're here.
I'm Jason Dilge. I am the executive director of a national organization called Be Mindful. I live in the southwestern part of the great Commonwealth of Virginia, but we're actually based out of Denver, Colorado.
All right, great. And how did you come to present here? Have you traveled all over the country with this presentation? Tell us all about it.
Sure. So I'm going to be here with a teacher from the San Juan Unified School District, who I've worked with quite a bit up in that school district, and we share the practice and the science of mindfulness so that teachers can employ it in their lives. And the why of it is it helps teachers take care of themselves. It helps students learn better. It really just it raises the level of what's happening in the classroom on just about every metric you can think of. And so we're really excited to be sharing these practices in the science and how to extend it into teachers' lives every day.
I've definitely had some experience with that in my life, and as a teacher who, I did have my time where I was really stressing out, and mindfulness really helped me. And it was really very rewarding to actually bring that into the classroom and teach the kids those skills as well. Do you do a lot of work with students directly, or is it mostly with the teachers?
We work with entire learning communities, so we will actually work with students, teachers, parents, administrators, counselors, the whole universe of folks involved in the learning community, because we know that if a community is practicing mindfulness together, the benefits grow even greater than if just one or two folks are using it, or if it's being used as like a remedial kind of technique. It just doesn't work as well. So
Right. So what kind of practices work the best, do you think, in the classroom or for the teachers?
Well, what we find is that if we remember the definition of mindfulness, which is really just paying attention to something on purpose and not falling into the distractions of the thoughts and feelings that arise as we bear witness to whatever it is that's happening, there are actually a number of ways to achieve that. There's not just one way or one practice that works. A lot of people might be familiar with sitting practice or walking meditation or things like that. They may think that we have to sit for a long time to get the benefits from it, but there are actually really short practices and a whole portfolio of them, and we'll teach some of those today and basically let the educators know that there really is a variety. There's a variety of these practices that are effective, that it's about frequency. Just kind of work them into your routine and you'll see the benefits.
Let's talk about like the average elementary teacher who might be walking into your presentation for the first time and asking, Jason, how can I get started with this? What is one that you might recommend that our listeners might be able to take home with them?
Well, a really easy one, and probably one of our hallmark practices that we created, was one called First Just Breathe. And First Just Breathe is a clue to what the practice is. The F stands for fist, the J stands for jaw, and the breathe stands for breath. And we basically encourage folks to just take a minute, notice that when we're under stress, a lot of times we tend to ball up our fists, we tend to clench our jaws, we tend to not breathe very deeply. And so it just gives the teachers a moment, and students a moment, to be able to stop, notice, to the exclusion of things that are arising in the present moment. So, or not to the exclusion of things that are arising in the present moment, but to the emotions and the thoughts that are arising in response to things that are coming up in the present moment.
All right.
So you were saying that it's not just sitting in a classic meditation form, but it's you're bringing many practices in all at once. Like what other things that we would not normally think of as a contemplative practice would you have somebody do?
So one that I'm going to teach today is a peripheral vision exercise, where basically the practitioner would simply find a spot above the horizon, fix the gaze there, and then without moving the gaze, focus the attention on what they notice in the periphery of their vision. It can be a quick practice.
Cool.
I actually, living in Southwest Virginia, I actually use this practice while I'm driving so that I can catch deer moving on the sides of the road. So I'll focus on the road, but then I'll allow my attention to go into my peripheral vision so I can catch things that are moving out there. It works pretty well.
That's a really neat thing to move the mindfulness movement outside of just sitting and meditating. And in my classroom, I'm a woodshop teacher, and so I get to bring some of that in about being present with the project that you're working on, especially with my more advanced kids. When they start using power tools, it's all about being present with the power
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah. It's a perfect opportunity to talk about that. And then as my more advanced students get comfortable with the machines, I start saying, I'm more worried about you hurting yourself than a beginner hurting themselves, because they're so mindful, they're so in the moment, whereas now you've become complacent. I want you to bring that mindfulness back to this tool.
That's so great. I mean, and you've probably heard the phrase beginner's mind used in context of mindfulness.
Absolutely.
And when I teach, a lot of times I'll just say, without using that phrase or falling back on that phrase, I'll just say, treat this moment as though you're an alien from another planet and you have never been in one of these soft, mushy, fleshy things before.
Meat puppet.
Yeah, exactly.
I had to bring Pete Holmes into this, didn't I?
That's perfect. I think those are definitely helpful things, and what I think they can do for our listeners is enhance the way we look at our lives. And instead of just
Right.
running through these routines day to day, looking for whatever good thing is coming in the future, make a little more awareness of the good things that are all around us all the
Be
time.
here now.
Absolutely. And the more you practice, the easier it gets. It's like anything. It's like tying your shoes, being a teacher, doing yoga. It's a practice. And
That's great. Well, Jason, you were a really strong leadoff hitter, and I shake your hand and thank you
Thank
for
you,
being
guys.
here.
Thank you so
and I'm going to
much,
see,
Jason.
can Scottie deliver on the second 1-2 punch of this doubles tennis team? And can Jason remember to take the headphones off? He had a little trip and fall. Mindfulness is something that the cables that are entwining our lives every single day. Hey, Scottie, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Good, just
we're
adjusting
great.
your levels because that's quite different. And I'm being mindful of those levels. It's
Yeah.
funny because even something like that, we're running a podcast here and I'm trying to listen to Jason. I want to absorb what Jason's saying, but I get absorbed in the routines and the level checking of life too. So,
Right.
Scottie, what do you add to this equation here? Jason seems like he's got everything handled. What's he bringing you around for? Just kidding, of course.
Yeah, the whole idea
Just
that
walk out and leave and slam your microphone down like, what jerks those guys are? How is that inspiring at all?
Well, I come in just try to assist to bring a different perspective of my experience in doing various work with the youth, and also in my line of work, which is construction and engineering. So hopefully that I'll be able to add into a different perspective about various things.
Absolutely.
Assisting these folks.
So we got a woodshop teacher here and a guy with expertise in construction engineering. I'm just going to go take a break for half an hour, and we'll see you two shortly.
Yeah, we're just going to job out mindfulness in the construction site. So talk to us a little bit about working with youths. So you've got a lot of experience in the classroom with youths. What kind of process do you go through with the kids teaching them mindfulness? How do you get past even the first lesson is sometimes the hardest, having done this myself, getting past the giggles?
Yeah, so I had a chance to participate in this youth group since I was 8 years old. And the group is international now, and I travel around the world just to share different experience with them, and also learning more about leadership. So to answer your question is that how do you get past all these things is you got to put yourself in the shoes of these folks, right? These young individuals where their world is so fragile. Our world right now, it would have collapsed if we were to lose our job, having a big loss
Sure.
in the family and
Right.
et cetera. But you got to think about these young kids. Their world may collapse just if they lose a toy. If they have their first puppy love and it doesn't work out, that's their whole world collapsing.
That was the story of my educational youth. But you're right. We
Yeah.
forget what the perspective of a child is versus our adult perspective. That's an important thing for a teacher to keep in mind.
And we can be so judgeful and judgmental of students when they're falling apart because of a lost toy or a puppy love or something like that. But that is their whole world.
Exactly. And once we understand that, and once we be able to just kind of take a step back and understand these young individuals and seeing that their life is it's just as big or as small as we think at that moment, then we would assist them. We would be able to help them in much better, effective ways.
So really taking the student's perspective is a way to for us to be mindful in how we engage with them. And I think our keynote did a really good job of speaking to that as well. I found that really inspiring too.
That's great. Do you have one more piece? So one thing maybe keeping in mind what is valuable to a student. What other things do you share in the presentation that our listeners at Inspiring Teachers might take and value in their day today?
The main thing that I would like to share in this presentation would then be we have to be able to give something that we have. A lot of times we try to teach and we try to share all these different experiences, mainly from the textbook that we read, but we don't practice ourselves. If I want to give you an orange, the first thing that has to happen, other than the willingness to give, is the physical orange itself. If I don't have it, I cannot give it to you. So being the educator or being the teacher or being someone that's trying to share the experience, you must go through that yourself. You must practice what you preach. And if you have that, then you can confidently stand in front of these childs and be able to show them and teach them what you came through, and you can relate to them in a much better way.
Yeah, how we deal with conflict in the classroom can actually be more valuable than the actual content that we are creating. And I don't just mean conflict like fighting, but just any little moment of tension, the resistance, getting snagged on something. I one time had a student, she accidentally dropped her pencil box off the edge of her desk, and it went everywhere, a loud noise, and everybody went, ooh.
Always.
And I'm just like, just help her. It's okay.
Right.
And she looked at me with absolute terror too, like I was about to scream at her for. So, bringing that in and being the demonstration of how we want them to behave and how we want them to live is so valuable.
And a lot of times that we see that when stuff happens, we tend to react very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is that you don't. You don't have to right away, thinking
call.
that something is falling. You have to jump out there and catch right away. My son had an issue that, when he drinks milk, and then after that he gets excited or he laughs or he cries, he always regurgitate. And, in the middle of the night, and he's all over the bed. And what are you gonna do then, right?
Mm-hmm.
First is that most of the time, what we do is that we freak out,
Right.
and we get the child scared. He's only 5 years old, 4 years old. You can't reason when he's crying, and he doesn't like to be dirty and all that. So I told my wife, I said, "It's okay. It's already happened. Let's just go ahead and clean up."
And that's a good analogy. I know you want to add something to that too, but one of my teachers that trained me about how to do with things that come up in a classroom that are not expected is treat everything that happens as it's normal. Mm-hmm. Because how else are you really going to react appropriately to everything that's going to happen in life? And it's a good example to set for them. What did you want to say?
Oh, we both have young kids that are about 2 weeks apart.
Yes.
And when they fall over, they look to us
What's our reaction?
first. If our reaction is, then they're going to mirror that. Their
Exactly.
mirror neurons
Exactly.
are all going to fire, and they're going to do it. But if they look to us and see, but then if they look at, and they start crying after that fall, we know the severity of that as well. It's a way to gauge how bad that fall actually was.
Absolutely, and in the construction site that I'm dealing with, similarly, right? We have to always know what is going on around us.
Always.
And the moment that you're not paying attention, that's when stuff happens. And out in the field, safety is number one priority.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so you always have to be on your toes and always be mindful. Always be at that moment. Be in the
Right.
presence. Enjoy it, and then that's how you can be productive.
It is interesting. They'll have these moments where I'm working with a student focused, and all of a sudden I'm like, something doesn't sound right. Like I just like a spidey sense almost, like the machine's not working right or they're not using it right. You can feel it almost in the air, and bring that mindfulness into that classroom so you can really.
And I'm so glad that we were mindful enough and that Faye was mindful enough to bring you in to start us off even before the start of our podcast
Right.
today.
Yeah.
Where can people find out more about your presentation or about your message? Is there a website? Is there a social media handle that you guys want to give out? Jason's going to tag in here for the big finish.
Yeah, folks can find out more about our organization at www.bemindful.us.org
All right.
and
Fantastic.
fabok.com.
Oh, good. Make sure we get that in there, too. Well, gentlemen, have a wonderful day. And I know
Yeah.
that it's going to be very impactful what you're saying to everyone here at the conference. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for being here. And remember,
Wow.
you're wearing headphones.
That is great, man.
that was awesome,
I am
man.
so happy to
What a
see
great
mindfulness
way- Oh, I
really
know.
just not just in the classroom, but also like for teachers, really teaching them that they can use mindfulness in their lives as well to deal with the stresses of being a teacher.